Hello, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Keon.
And this is Trust Your Doctor, that podcast with capitalism, because this week we watched Oxygen.
Written by Jamie Mathieson.
Directed by Charles Palmer.
And aired on May 13th, 2017.
Jamie Mathieson, back again.
Back at it again with the...
What?
2017 was when the back at it again with the white vans meme or whatever came out, wasn't it?
Damn, Daniel.
Yeah, that. Or was that 2016? I don't know anymore.
Hey, like, 1 week is like 5 years in internet meme time.
Yeah. There's this new book called Because Internet, and it's about, like, memes and stuff.
That's kind of weird.
I kind of want to read it.
That's kind of weird. That sounds like...
It's like...
I don't know. I don't know why I'm having such difficulty saying this, but that like just sounds like when people say that things happen in movies, like because it's a movie. It's like things happen on the internet because it's the internet.
Well, that's the title of the book. It's sort of like a sociolinguistic, academic like take on memes. Sounds pretty interesting.
Take on memes.
Wow.
Wasn't the Take on Me video a meme for a while too? Like that style of video?
Yeah, it was a pre-internet meme.
I don't know if it was a pre-internet meme. It was like coming of age of the internet meme.
No, like it was Take on Me was like 84. It was like before the internet.
Yeah, but it didn't really become a meme until
Maybe
the
not.
internet got a hold of it. Anyway, speaking of memes, Twitter.
Oh yeah.
Here was my review of Oxygen from May 22nd, 2017. This is when I started to fall behind and wasn't watching them the week they came out.
Well.
My review was a bit heavy-handed, but overall a rather good script and episode. And I think that still rings true. I think I still feel the same way.
Yeah, it was somewhat interesting. The premise was a lot more interesting than what actually happened in the episode, because a lot of it was just like base under siege, running through corridors, classic Doctor Who stuff, which I didn't find all that interesting.
Well, it's classic Doctor Who.
It was okay.
I was going to say, that reminds me of how I finally figured out why I always find movies where the trailer is like, from visionary director, blah, 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 to always just suck. It's because if they say, you know, from visionary director Ang Lee, for example, because I'm specifically thinking of Gemini Man when I say this, it's because they're selling you on the vision of what the movie could be, and like not in the movie that they actually made. And that's how I felt when I finished Gemini Man. I'm like, damn, the trailers really sold me on like what this could have been, and instead I got this big turd.
Yeah, you know, this movie had two characters played by Will Smith when it could have had one character played by Will Smith and one character played by Jaden Smith.
What, like After Earth?
Yeah, or what's that movie where it's like it's Will Smith and Jaden Smith, and Will Smith is part of a pyramid scheme, and they're like really came out like 10 years ago.
What?
Yeah, you ever heard of this?
No.
I can't think of the name right now, but yeah, I've watched it fully.
Why?
Surprisingly.
Why? Why?
Yeah, I'll put the name in the notes.
How many good movies has Will Smith actually made?
I don't know.
Pursuit of Happiness? Was that?
Oh,
Will
that's
Smith in that?
the one I was thinking of, I think.
Oh. That's like considered his best movie, I think.
Huh.
You know, the best part about Gemini Man was halfway through the movie where someone turns to Will Smith's character and it's just like, you grew up in Philadelphia, right? You're like, I'm not sure if this is like some sort of meta reference. If like the writers of the movie just decided Philadelphia was the best place for Will Smith's character to be from.
Well, how can you not like no? How can you write that into the movie but not like no? You know?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like, how, like you had to know, right? Like you had to have known.
Yeah. From West Philadelphia, born and raised.
Anyway, the worst Will Smith movie I've ever seen was Collateral Beauty. But anyway, moving on.
I don't even know what that is. I don't think I
It was like an Oscar bait movie from 2016.
Oscar bait? Is that a new genre?
That's been a thing for like a decade where like, you know, they'll make these super heavy-handed emotional stories in movies that like you can tell are like playing to the Oscar voting crowd with their heavy emotional themes. But then like some of them, you know, it's Oscar bait when it does that and it just sucks.
The Notebook.
Like Collateral Beauty. Collateral Beauty.
Shape of Water.
Shape of Water was actually good. But Collateral Beauty was a movie where Will Smith's daughter dies, and he's like depressed, and then like these I guess the spirits of like love, death, and I don't remember hope. I don't remember the other one.
Spirit of Christmas Past.
They like appear to him, but then I'm just gonna spoil this
Right,
because it's the dumbest plot twist in existence. Because it's not a plot twist, because that's the movie you were sold. But then when you get to the actual movie, you find out Will Smith's the CEO of a corporation. His daughter dies, and he's depressed, and his other shareholders want to oust him from the business because he's depressed.
I've heard of this.
So they hire actors. They hire actors to pretend to be love, hope, and death. But then the dumbest plot twist in the history of the universe is at the end of the movie when it's revealed that they're not actors. They actually are love, hope, and death, and they were just pretending to be actors to get hired to portray love, hope, and death to Will Smith.
It's really confusing.
Yes.
It's like in the Resident Evil 3 or whatever, the movie, not the game. This is considered like one of the worst plot twists ever, of when the zombies are actually just bioterrorists pretending to be zombies. And they're like, yeah, those zombies from 1 and 2, yeah, those were just terrorists. I think it's 3. It's one of the Resident Evil movies.
Wow.
Imagine being hired as a terrorist and you just have to walk through the streets going
and then get shot in the head.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, the story at hand. It begins with space, the final frontier.
Final Frontios.
The final frontier.
Remember the Tractators from Frontios?
Oh no. There's a Delta and the Bannerman connection in Star Cops this week, and I was like, holy moly, I don't remember anything about Delta and the Bannerman.
Star Cops a couple weeks from now.
That's true.
Actually. On our new sci-fi podcast, Inevitable. Classic sci-fi podcast. Check that out. We watch classic sci-fi and do a podcast about it. We're watching Star Cops Season 1. Check it out.
Anyway, my point was I don't remember anything about Delta and the Bannerman.
You don't remember? All right, this is the plot of Delta and the Bannerman.
Wait, that was the one that was in the motel, wasn't it?
Yeah, so they win tickets to Disneyland.
Oh yeah, then they end up at the motel.
They get an alien invading force, but they're also Harley Davidson riders.
Gang.
Yeah. They show up and there's a CIA agent just in the area.
That was the one where the Seventh Doctor basically solves the plot of the episode by going to the villains and being like, if you cross me, I'm basically going to kill all of you. And they're like, oh shit, bro. Never mind. If I remember correctly. Anyway, so the Doctor's talking about space, and Nardol's like, you really miss space, don't you? And the Doctor's like, what would give you that impression? And then it shows him lecturing about space for 4 lectures in a row.
Yeah, and thankfully, we were, I guess, curious a few weeks ago as to what the Doctor is actually a professor of, and we find out here it's art. He draws that spaceship on the board. What else could it be?
Well, doesn't one of the students ask what does this have to do with knitting or something?
Yeah.
The Doctor's
Good point.
Good point.
Starting to think the Doctor isn't even a real professor. I mean, he probably just knocks out the actual professor who's supposed to be teaching these classes and just is your permanent sub.
I want to know what happened to all of Bill's friends from last week who probably all got traumatized by the fact that they died and got brought back to life by these weird termites from space.
Yeah, possibly, just ruined their lives or something.
How are they not, knocking on the Doctor's door every day? What the hell happened? What's going on?
Maybe they're what's his name from Rose? The guy who gets killed, but who's just, an obsessive sort of doctor.
Oh, yeah, Clive.
Yeah, Clive. Clyde, or was it Clive? I don't know.
I was pretty sure it was Clive, but now you have me second-guessing myself.
But anyway, they wind up on the wheel in space. And they even make reference to the fact that, oh, look, a classic design for a space station.
Well, there's even Nardole tries to prevent the Doctor from leaving by stealing the fluid link. And the Doctor's like, who told you needed that to fly? And Nardole's like, you did. And he's like, and you trusted me? And the Doctor just takes off, and I'm like, wow, really puts a different spin on the Daleks now. I mean, I know in that story the Doctor, the whole thing about the fluid link needing mercury was just like a ploy by the Doctor. But this really puts a whole different spin on it, in that like it wasn't even required, like, period.
It's a multi-layered lie. How can you call the seventh Doctor the master trickster when the first Doctor came up with the fluid link ruse?
I saw a Reddit comment the other day that was like, the 11th Doctor was just a, like, toned down version of the manipulation of the 7th Doctor, and I really wanted to comment like, oh really? I feel like it's the other way around.
We actually completely skipped the opening scene where, like, some people get killed.
Well, just a woman gets killed, and
Yeah.
the other guy, like...
You don't know whether he
that's
dies or not.
That's the guy. Yeah, we don't know if he survives now or not, but later on you see him as part of the gang of survivors.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's him because of that, like, heartfelt reunion between him and his zombie, like... I don't know if that was his wife or, like, they were just co-workers or friends. I
Dating.
don't know. Yeah.
She wanted to tell him that she wanted to have a baby with him, and her comm link was broken.
Yeah. Completely forgot about that.
Then she
subplot
dies.
within a subplot. Yeah,
It's
she dies.
subplots all the way down. Yeah, so they land on the spaceship, but there's no oxygen inside the space station. The Doctor's like, that's kind of weird. But he extends a kind of oxygen corridor out of the TARDIS, and they explore a bit, and they find a dead guy in a suit, basically.
Right. He died standing up, so he's still just sort of standing there. Looks a little under the weather, looks a little blue, you might say. Haha. Because he's all zombified and necrofied.
How do you know he's just not a terrorist?
Yeah, that would have been a pretty amazing twist in this if, like, none of the so-called corpses were actually dead, but they were actually just terrorists. Which, in a way, like, kind of. I mean, they were just dead bodies being used for terroristic purposes by suits.
I guess.
Suits being used by suits.
Yeah, fleshy meatbag suits. We're all just spooky skeletons flying fleshy meatbags across the universe.
That's my favorite quote from Hamlet.
William Shakespeare.
You know, when he's in the graveyard and he's holding the skull.
And he's like, are we not all just fleshy meatbags being driven by spooky skeletons? Alas, poor Yorick. If only you could tell me the truth. And then he punt kicks Yorick's skull down the field.
Was that guy's name Yorick?
Yeah. Alas, poor Yorick. I knew him well. That's the actual line.
No.
So I don't know why I know that, actually. That's like the only line I know from Hamlet, except to be or not to be, which is actually immediately follows, like, after that line or before it. They're like part of the same monologue.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought that was when he was contemplating whether or not to kill his uncle or whatever.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, that's the same monologue. He contemplates whether or not to kill his uncle when he's holding Yorick's skull in the graveyard because Yorick's dead, and he's like, so should I kill my uncle or not? He's like talking to Yorick, like, should I do it or not? At least that's my recollection of it.
I don't remember. Part of me thinks that your interpretation of that is all, like, out of order. But I don't remember, honestly. I just don't remember. So.
Both of us could be wrong. But yeah, so the space station vents the unauthorized oxygen.
Right, because we've been getting, little clues as to what's going on. I think Bill finds sort of a computer that's just, like, on, and it makes reference to the fact that oxygen isn't free somehow.
Yeah.
And Nardole is, like, really mad throughout all of this. I've got to say, like, in previous episodes, it seems like Nardole's annoyance with the Doctor was more just for comic relief and wasn't, like, full-blown him being mad. But in this, like, he's actually, like, pretty mad.
Well, I guess it makes sense when you find out what's in the vault, or who's in the vault, or how is in the vault.
Is it Missy? She's in the preview for next week.
Was she?
Yeah, there's like a little split second. It's like shorter than 1 second.
Oh, I didn't watch the preview for next week, if I'm being honest. I actually turned the episode immediately off.
Yeah, she's in the preview. It's like a little half a second shot of her. But, you see her.
Well, we have 3 episodes to watch for next week, so...
Yeah.
But yeah, so Nardole is chastising the Doctor for this whole situation, and the Doctor's like, well, it's not my fault. Nardole's like, it literally is. Like, it's literally your fault.
It could have been in your office. But yeah, Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say Nardole wants him to leave, and then the doctor basically says, like, the records only show that 36 people died, but there's a crew manifest of 40. So if we leave now, we're leaving 40 people behind.
Yeah. And they're actually contacted by one of the people who was still alive, Tasker, and he sort of directs them through the base because, like we mentioned before, the oxygen is being siphoned out.
Mm-hmm.
And they need to get to the only safe part of the base. So they put on some suits, even though the suits at this point they've already deduced are like what, or were used somehow in the killing of the people. But it's their only hope. So they put on the suits. They're being sort of chased in a pretty exciting base under siege style scene by the zombies from outside.
Yeah, they have to put on the suits because there's no oxygen anymore because the space station, I guess it's like a mining station, vents all the oxygen.
Yeah, they're mining copper. We find that out in a minute. But what's really interesting here, one of the most interesting parts of this whole premise is like when they put on the suits, Bill, I think, mentions like, 3,000 breaths left or something. Wonder why they don't just measure it in time. And Nardole says like, you breathe faster when you're scared or excited.
So you die quicker.
Yeah. So this is a really interesting concept that like they have to kind of stay calm even in these circumstances where like zombies are literally chasing you. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of feel the execution of it was never actually like the scare factor was never from like the breaths component of it. I don't know. That's what I felt.
Maybe. I feel like the whole breaths thing was actually there not to necessarily be scary, but to make a point about the end goal of capitalism.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely that as well. But you can make the late capitalistic like horror thing like more scary with like, hey, like you're gonna run out of oxygen. You're literally gonna like cannibalize your own source.
I mean, it kind of comes back later at the very end when the doctor's like, the reason why they charge for oxygen is because they have no value on your life anymore. Like, the human life holds no value anymore.
Yeah, well, I mean, of course, it's also symbolic of like the like capitalistic machine, which like the ultimatum of that is like that it just cannibalizes itself.
Yep, late stage capitalism. We're living in it. Well, we're almost living in it. We're like close.
Well, thankfully, we're not at the like oxygen isn't free thing yet. I mean, we're getting there with like what's it called? Like environmental justice of like people who like demographic wise live in places where like the air will literally kill you versus like people who don't type thing.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's we're there basically. But the doctor asks for directions to the rest of the survivors, and they give him directions, but they don't open the door. They like wait until the very last moment to open the door, and I think Tasker says there was some debate on whether or not to open the door or not. And the doctor gives them his psychic paper, and it says he's from like the Foundation or something, and like the Foundation is just a myth. Yeah,
there's definitely a bigger like sci-fi background going on here. I don't know if this is ever touched on in later episodes. Although, like, at this point in the show, like, me saying that is not as effective as it once was, because, like, how many episodes are really left, right? Like, there's a couple more in this season, and there's, what, 10?
Like 20 left.
Yeah. Got 20 episodes to touch on this mythical foundation.
I mean, there's a theoretically infinite number of episodes left if you consider all the not yet made episodes.
Yeah, I guess.
They pull up a map, and the doctor asks what units the map is drawn in, and they mention, like, oh, it's an average breaths per, like, distance.
Yeah.
And the doctor's like, oh!
Yeah, this is a pretty interesting, like, thing, or, like, experiment that people have done or whatever, of, like, ask someone how far something away is, and the way they'll answer depends on where they're from. So like I think they did this in like LA, Hong Kong, and like some other places. So like in Hong Kong, or I don't know if it was Hong Kong, it was somewhere, some big city in East Asia, they just asked random people on the street how far away something is, and people answered in subway stops, like, oh, it's 3 stops away, or whatever. And then like when they did the same thing for people in LA, they'd be like, oh yeah, it's 40 minutes away. Mm-hmm. Or like they would adjust for traffic, or like probably now it's about an hour, but like leave in an hour and it would only take 30 minutes type thing. Mm-hmm. And then they asked people in like somewhere else, and they would like literally just give distance.
Of course, the LA people would talk in minutes.
Yeah.
5 miles. Oh, that's probably 40 minutes away.
Well, if you leave in the next 30 seconds, it'll take you 5 minutes. But
if you leave anything after that, it'll take you 4 hours.
But yeah, just sort of an interesting thing. So, like, I guess this station or this society answers in breaths.
Yeah, because it's money. Breathing is money.
Yeah. Imagine if they literally answered in dollars and cents. Scary stuff.
Is it?
Kind of. I mean, it's not like effectively like scary of like my heart starts pounding because like it's not.
I mean, but I was gonna say it's not really scary if you're like a multi-billionaire like Jeff Bezos. Here's a terrifying like wealth disparity fact for you. Like us, like as average Americans, we're closer to having $1 billion than Bill Gates is.
Wait, what? What
Bill
do you mean by
Gates
that?
has like $5 billion, so like we're actually closer to the numerical sum of $1 billion than Bill Gates is. Like, just think about that. It's kind of like that other mind-blowing thing that like Cleopatra lived closer to the moon landing than to the building of the pyramids, to give you a sense of like how old the pyramids are.
Yeah.
So they basically run around for a bit.
Yeah, well, let's.
Bill's kind of racist to the blue guy.
Yeah, so let's kind of introduce the people who are here. We have Tasker, who I guess was in charge of completing the task. I guess.
Nah.
And then we have Da Ren, or as he pronounced it, Da Ren.
And as Bill pronounced it, Darren.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's Darren. And she's like, wow, that makes a lot more sense. You're like, wow, Bill, you're kind of being casually racist here.
Yeah, well, that was the whole like thrust of this scene, is that like Bill's like, no, wait, I'm not being racist. I'm usually on the receiving end. And Da Ren is just like, oh, all right.
Darren's like, I don't believe it.
So Da Ren is sort of, part of he looks like he's part of the Blue Man Group or like one of the Ultra World guys from Blake 7 or something. I don't know if we ever like see...
Blake 7 in the same universe as Doctor Who confirmed.
Chris Boucher and Terry Nation's dream finally came true. So, I mean, I don't know if there are any like... If there's any more to this guy other than that he's like humanoid and he's blue and... presumably not from Earth.
That's it. I think that's it. And that Bill's racist to him.
Yeah.
Guess the whole point of this is anybody can be racist.
Yeah. And then we have the guy who we saw in the beginning, I believe. I forget his name.
Yeah, I didn't know his name or the girl's name.
I knew the other lady's name, but I forgot what it was.
I only knew the names of the people who died. Weirdly enough,
but the
Abby and Ivan.
Right. Abby is sort of the one who's most against the Doctor because she thinks he's going to get them all killed.
Yeah, but
after Tasker dies is like she's like, yeah, you're definitely going to get us all killed.
But then the Doctor, at some point the Doctor talks to Bill when they're getting in the suits, and the Doctor's like, either you don't get in the suit and you suffocate here, or you get in the suit and maybe suffocate later. Let's play the odds here. Like, either you definitely die now, or you maybe die later.
So that's their sort of plan, I guess, for now. They need to get to a certain part of the ship where there's, I forget, there's either like more abundant oxygen or they have like oxygen tanks or something. Or like a rescue... Well, I don't know the rescue ship's coming yet, but it's just where they need to get to.
Well, they need to go somewhere because they're getting into the command post, which is where they're holed up right now because they're fixing the door. And that's when they make the decision to go outside because like all the corridors are filled except for one, which is section 12. And we find out when they get there, the reason for that is that it's not on any of their maps because it's new.
Yeah. So the Doctor's lecture from the beginning of the episode comes back because Bill needs to be exposed to the vacuum of space I forget why, but
Well, so they all put their helmets on, but Bill's helmet doesn't lock, and they can't stop the depressurization sequence. And I'm like, is the space station like even pressurized? Because there's no oxygen inside. So what's the point in pressurizing the station?
yeah, well, we forgot to mention actually Velma, Bill's suit, which all the suits are obviously computer controlled, but this one has like a more like robust like AI thing.
Well,
inside
they
it or
all
something.
have them, but Traska, because her suit gets stuck early, and when Traska fixes it, he's like, yeah, we all turned the vocal component of all our suits off.
Oh yeah, turn Siri off. But Velma, it seems like just by being turned on, I don't think it's just the vocal like aspect to it. I think like because she like controls Bill's movements at times.
Yeah, because her suit's malfunctioning. Her suit was like out for repairs. Well, all three, Bill, Nightall, and the Doctor's suits are out for repairs, but Bill's is like the
More
most in need
broken.
of repair.
Yeah.
But so her helmet isn't locking, and the Doctor's like, oh shoot, oh shoot, oh shoot, and then the depressurization finishes, and she gets exposed to the vacuum of space, and she passes out, basically.
Yeah, there's a sort of odd montage-esque thing where you don't really know what's going on. I guess this is first-person perspective from Bill because she's sort of blacking out and coming to for a second, again and again. And eventually she wakes up and they're on the other side.
And Nightall basically reveals to her that the Doctor gave her his helmet and exposed himself to the vacuum of space. Throwback to when we found out with the fourth Doctor, he's like, I can basically hold my breath in space for like 2 minutes.
When was that?
Shoot, what story was that? I remember that being revealed and us being like, wait, what?
Maybe the Ark in Space or something?
Maybe it was a third Doctor episode, one of the two. Because I think it was a Sarah Jane episode, which is why I can't remember now if it was fourth or fifth, but whatever.
I don't even think the third Doctor went to space. Like, he went to planets, but was there ever, like, a space station that he went to or anything?
Yeah, in the Mutants.
Oh, yeah, the mutants. Good story there.
So then it's revealed that the Doctor's blind because he got exposed to the vacuum of space for too long.
Right.
He's like, oh, do I'll fix this in the TARDIS later. And you're like, yeah, you will.
Yeah, the Doctor's not going to be blind forever, right? I mean, he's not going to be blind for the rest of his incarnation as the 12th Doctor, right? Right?
Him being blind is actually a major thrust of the next 3-parter.
Huh. Is the 13th Doctor's not blind, right? Like, is the Doctor
Spoilers,
just
sweetie.
blind? Just blind forever now?
Well, that would suck. But then the suits can't get into that section because it's not on the maps.
But they overhear someone, I think it's Nardole, talking about like another way around. Like, good thing the suits don't know about like this other hidden corridor. You see like the map on the suit like screen like recalibrate the route. This is like troll levels, the level of like when the Master's like golem that he was controlling just like shows up in the Oracle on gosh, what was the planet called? The planet Nissa's from.
To something with T,
yeah.
Wasn't it?
Darn it! Why can't I remember?
I keep wanting to say Trask.
No. God, the curse of podcast
Trocken.
strikes. Yeah, Trocken. The curse of Trocken. When the golem thing like just pops its head in the room, and the guy's like, "It's evil."
Best part of that story was when the golem just opened up to reveal the Master just sitting inside, like. Didn't the Master kill Nissa's dad in that story?
The Master like wiped out most of the population of Trocken, didn't he? Or was it the whole population? I can't remember now.
One of the few times that that the Master was like actually successful in committing genocide. Should take some tips from the Doctor, maybe.
He didn't he committed genocide like multiple times in the course of like that 3-episode end of the Fourth Doctor's run thing, didn't he?
Yeah. Yeah. Didn't he like wipe out like half the universe in Legopolis or something?
Yeah, he did. He did.
Do we all just forget that? Or did
Missy
they
comes
undo it
back and like,
somehow?
you and I are friends, best friends.
Maybe they undid it somehow. I don't remember.
I don't think so.
But I do remember the Fourth Doctor died by falling off a radio telescope.
Yeah. I saw a poll thread on Twitter recently about, what you think the best doctor's last lines before he regenerates are. And as we all know, Twitter only allows for 4 poll options. So this was, just a pick and choose whatever the person thought were the top 4. And I can't believe but the moment has been prepared for was not among those 4 that the person chose.
Did they just pick the 4 reboot ones?
I think so. I think they did.
Well, then that's fine, I guess. I was like, they just pick like 4 randomly. Like, just the first doctor saying, it's getting cold now, I gotta go.
Later.
Then he says it like 20 minutes before he actually regenerates, but it's the final thing he says because he just leaves.
I think this wasn't the second doctor's last line, like Jamie or something like that.
Yeah, it was like, no, Jamie, because they like send him into the time vortex or whatever.
I don't remember any of the other ones, to be honest.
The third doctor says something like, while there's life, there's hope. A tear, Sarah Jane? Don't cry, that's what it was.
Yeah.
And the 4th doctor was the moment has been prepared for, and the 5th doctor was, shoot, what was the 5th doctor's? I remember it being really awesome because it was Caves of Androzani. It was Bob Holmes at his best.
It was like bat milk isn't as good as cow milk or something like that.
And the 6th doctor was like, carrot juice, carrot juice, carrot juice. That should have been on the poll, because we all know that's the best.
7th doctor doesn't have one on the show.
It's true. Because he just buggers off with Ace.
His last lines are great, though.
It's true.
There's coffee to drink, tea to drink. Let's go, Ace. Wasn't that? That's a corruption. That's a trust your doctor.
That's a trust your doctor corruption. Is that a thing now? Just trust your doctor corruptions of classic Doctor Who. So they basically just Bill gets zapped, and the doctor takes them all to the central reactor, and he hooks all their life signs into the reactor, and he's like, "Look, guys. I've basically made it so that it's going to be more expensive to kill us than it is to keep us alive. This is big brain time."
Well, he doesn't reveal his plan for like 5 minutes, but he does tell them that like, hey, I wired the ship to blow like pretty soon. Also, I wired it to blow if we die.
Yeah. Well, he does explain why he did that later. He's like, yeah, if the suits had overheard me, then they wouldn't have, like, they would have known and they would have found a way around it.
Yeah.
So and that's why he couldn't tell them that Bill wouldn't die, because her suit doesn't have enough power to actually destroy her central nervous system like it did for Dachren and Chaska, because then they would have killed her another way.
Yeah, we didn't mention the little line that the suit says when it kills you, which is like, please remain calm while I disable your central nervous system or something along those lines.
Yeah, it's like decommissioning the organic component.
Right. So yeah, like you mentioned, the doctor makes it more expensive for them to stay alive.
You mean to die then to stay alive?
Yeah, that's what I meant. The suits sort of just stop. And this is where we see Ivan sort of see
his wife
or whatever her name was, and realize that she's just a lifeless corpse being controlled by the suits. The doctor actually has a pun here. He's like, we're doing what all workers have been doing for like all time. We're fighting the suits. Ha. It's pretty good, I thought, actually.
And then the doctor takes Ivan and what did it
Abby?
Say? Abby to HQ, because that's where they want to go, because they want to raise a fuss. And then
yeah, well, he tells them that he can take them anywhere throughout all of space and time, and they're like, take us to corporate. We have some complaints to make. They're probably just going to get like shut down by the system.
Well, that's because the next scene, Bill comes into the office and is like, oh, did it work? And the doctor says something like, well, I don't know, but there was 6 months later a successful rebellion and it brought the whole company down and basically ended capitalism in the human empire, so I don't know.
Yeah, they got lucky. Like, generally what you'd think is like they just show up and like get jailed for something or some loophole or, I don't know. But, I guess just at the end of the day, it all worked out.
Well, did it really? Because then Nardole chastises the doctor for this whole thing, and he's like, look at me, and the doctor's like, I can't, and Nardole's like, look at me! The doctor's like, I literally cannot. I cannot see anything still. Like, I'm still blind. Because he, tells Bill to, I guess, inject him with something in the TARDIS, and it, clears his eyes up, because they get foggy when he was blind, and it clears him up like he can see, but yeah, he tells Nardole, yeah, he's actually still blind. Right.
But he doesn't tell Bill, so Bill still thinks he's fine again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's pretty much the end of it.
That is the end of it. It's not even like pretty. It is the end of it. I just wanted to talk about how the story is, I think, a pretty effective commentary, I guess, on capitalism and I guess the end of capitalism.
The
like
end game.
Well, kind of like where capitalism would go, like its natural kind of course is removing all value placed on human life, which is almost in a way interesting because it's seems like that's almost where the whole thing started with with the Industrial Revolution and like slaves you had no value on their lives and like owning people, and that was like I think one of the earliest parts of capitalism, not the earliest, but one of the earliest times that capitalism was introduced into human society. And then it seems it kind of comes full circle, and at the end there's no value on human life. Like the only thing that matters is your bottom line, basically, your profit margin.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I like the sort of like emblem of like the oxygen running out and like this whole capitalistic thing of like, because capitalism is literally a system that like works, quote unquote, for like a long time, but then eventually like just destroys itself based on like its own, like just based on what it does. Like it's a cannibalistic system, right? Like the premise of capitalism is basically like not only are there winners and losers, but there are winners because there are losers, and there's losers because there are winners. So like what happens when you like keep reaping or what the losing faction sows, like until there's nothing left, and then you have to start like reaping that entire faction. Eventually you like just destroy your source of wealth.
Right. But then it's like, does wealth even hold any value if you have like I mean, it's true, like, if you have if there's no one left to compare your wealth against, you basically destroy the lower class and harvest them to get more wealth. Now just everybody's, like, equally wealthy, so it's basically back to the start where, like, you're all not wealthy anymore.
Yeah, well, there's many, like, different theories of wealth, which I used to know, like, quite a few of them, but I can't remember any now. I obviously didn't look any up for this discussion, but yeah, the capitalistic one, like, works for a while. Actually, like now that I think about it, it's kind of interesting that like a lot of capitalism is fueled by fuel, by like non-renewable resources, because like the capitalism is a system that like by its own premises like only works for a while, and like hey, oil is like a thing that only works for a while, like it's gonna run out,
right? And then once we run out, what are we gonna do? But I mean, humans are like a non-renewable resource in a way as well. Like if you use them up, like in this episode, they kill all the humans to replace them with new ones, because that was the thing. We didn't mention that the corporate basically killed everyone on the station because they were getting less and less efficient at their job, and so they were going to replace all of them with new hires.
Yeah. Or was there also, am I just making this up, or was there also a component of it of like, hey, the mines are running dry and we don't even want to spend the money to like bring these people back, just kill them?
No, I think it was because the quote rescue ship unquote, the doctor's like, that's not a rescue ship, those are your replacements. Like check the logs.
Yeah,
you can see
true.
that they left before you sent the distress signal. Like they're here to replace you, basically.
Yeah, don't know why they didn't check those logs before. I guess this just happened like right before they got there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, interesting sort of story. I also kind of wanted to just touch on a lot of the classic connections, which we mentioned a couple of them. There's the Dalek reference with the fluid link. There's, when they not checking the atmosphere before leaving the TARDIS, straight
That's
from the
always
Daleks.
served them well.
The TARDIS getting trapped, because at some point the Doctor is just like, all right, let's just leave, which is pretty rare for him, but like the TARDIS is actually trapped because the base sort of shuts parts of itself down when it starts jettisoning the oxygen. There's the whole base under siege. This is a base under siege story, essentially.
Yeah.
That's a format from the second Doctor's era there. And they're basically on the wheel in space, like the design. They even mention, like, look at this classic design. You zoom out and it's kind of, a circular. It's the wheel in space, So a lot of classic show connections there.
Right. Yeah,
And,
very interesting.
yeah.
Like this whole season.
Yeah, no, I'm actually really liking the classic throwbacks to this. In this, season.
Right.
So, sonic screwdriver count.
Okay.
I had the sonic screwdriver being used for unknown purpose, checking life signs, turning on lights, and closing doors. Yeah.
I have for unknown purpose scanning and deactivating a spacesuit.
We should also mention that it gets destroyed in this episode, and I don't think, unless I completely missed this, I don't think it gets brought back.
Well, not at the end of the story. We didn't see, a new version pop out or anything. The Doctor was sad about it, but don't worry, he still has the sonic shades.
Oh, yeah, I guess he never got rid of the sonic shades. Yeah, I guess he just stopped using them when he got the screwdriver back. Well, all right.
I have a couple quotes. My first one is it's an exchange between the Doctor and Nardole, and he's like, "What do you want?" And Nardole's like, "The truth," and the Doctor's like, "Don't be unreasonable." The Doctor, "You only really see the true face of the universe when it's asking for help." And Nardole, "Relax or die." And that's it. Those are my quotes.
I didn't have any for this episode.
Bummer.
Yeah.
Well,
I should try and have at least one, I think, for every episode, but, maybe I think sometimes there's just nothing that stands out.
Well, we have an email to respond to.
Yeah.
From David Beardsley. Subject line, great podcast. Yes, even the massacre episode. Hi, guys. I just finished binge listening to your entire catalog of classic series episodes over the last few months.
Uh-oh.
I thought I would write to let you know how much I have been enjoying your podcast. In honor of this milestone, I considered writing you a, quote, love letter, unquote, ... or maybe an, quote, angry rant, unquote, but instead decided on my top 10 favorite things about the Trust Your Doctor podcast classic series episodes, featuring a bunch of stuff from episodes you recorded years ago and have probably long forgotten about. 10, the companions, the Adric, the Leela, the Romana, the Jamie, the Stephen. It seemed to happen to every companion at least once and was always amusing. Also worthy of mention is Adric being referred to as the blind cat. I don't remember exactly why, but it somehow seems fitting. I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember that at all.
9, impressions. More common in the early episodes, but my favorite was Keon's impression of Captain Hopper. Tomb of the Cybermen. Honorable mentions to Dylan's Alpha Centauri, Monster of Peladon, and Keon's imitation of the theme from K9 and Company during the 3rd anniversary special.
Oh, God. Things that should be left in the past.
8, Nissa. 7, Keon's puns. Often eye-rollingly bad, but occasionally brilliant. One of my favorites is from Resurrection of the Daleks when the flip-flopping character Stein finally sacrifices himself to save the day. He finally decided whose side he was on. Suicide.
Wow. It's a pretty good one past me.
6, honest opinions. I always enjoy hearing your honest opinions, especially when you disagree with accepted fandom. Several of your favorite stories are generally unpopular with fans, and many of the so-called, quote, classics, unquote, you found to be just average. I'm not sure if the Armageddon Factor would make my top 10, but it's a decent story. The reaction from Quinod Podcast when you said that season 17 was possibly the best of the series was priceless. 5, dinner tonight is going to be a national disaster.
Wow, completely forgot about that. Great line.
4, incorrect predictions. Being familiar with the entire series, it was always interesting to hear your predictions, many of which were spot on. However, there were some amusing times that you were way off, such as when you held off on doing Ben and Polly's retrospective because you were expecting them to return in the next serial, which was set in the same location, or then you were looking forward to see how the Masters' plan to start a space war in Frontier in Space would be continued in Planet of the Daleks. 2, Tagana. I will never watch Marco Polo quite the same way again.
Still one of the greatest villains in all of Doctor Who.
1, your dedication to this podcast. 5 years and counting, almost 6 now. For having never seen the series before, I was particularly impressed that you trudged through every single reconstruction. That's not an easy task for even the most dedicated fan. I don't think there's any other Doctor Who podcast as complete as yours, and you do it every week. But Keon, did you ever go back and rewatch Pyramids of Mars?
No, I haven't.
Keep up the great work. I'm now heading into the reboot episodes, and I'm hopeful that I might be able to catch up to you before you run out of episodes. I've still got a long ways to go, so I better get to it. So until next time, the end. David Beardsley.
Well, thanks. Thanks for that clickbait style, top 10. I'm kidding.
Wow. Just shitting all over our fans.
No, but actually, like, thanks for the email. There's a lot of stuff that, like, I completely forgot about, like the dinner tonight is going to be a national disaster line.
I forgot about referring to Ajik as the blind cat, and I still don't remember the context in which that came up and was introduced
I don't
into
remember
the Doctor
that.
Who lore.
And thanks for trudging. You mentioned how we trudged through a lot of the recons. Thanks for trudging through our early episodes because I don't think they were good.
Yeah. Thanks for trudging through that. But I guess you get to hear the growth of the podcast.
Yeah.
So I guess that's kind of cool.
Yeah, when we first started, we were just a seed planted in the ground, and now we're just like just a few shoots like sprouting out of it. And there's not too much intellectual growth there, but there's some, and that's what matters, I think.
Well, sure. Well, I really appreciate you sending us that email, David.
Yeah, I've been reminded again now to watch, I think, for the first time, Pyramids of Mars. Technically a rewatch, but I just wasn't paying attention the first time.
And you watched it at like 4 a.m, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. No, but like every time we bring this up, like I continue to watch a lot of these episodes at 4 a.m, and I do pay attention to them.
Now, you learned your lesson after Pyramids of Mars, which is still one of the best stories, too.
Well, I pay a lot more attention now. Like, to be honest, I'll admit, in the classic era, like, I didn't really care about Doctor Who to the extent that I do now.
You've been indoctrinated. Or Stockholm Syndrome. One of the two. Well, again, thank you. And if there's anyone else who'd like to email us, you can reach us at thedoctor@decadentvegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on oxygen, the breathing gas.
Do you think there should be a price put on it?
Should we charge for oxygen? You can find us on YouTube at Decorative Vegetable. You can find us on Apple Podcasts and Google Play at Trust Your Doctor. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter at TYD Podcast and follow us on Twitter. And next time we're watching Extremis, the pyramid at the end of the world, and the Lie of the Land. But until then, the end.